Okay. All right. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Rebecca Love. All right. So Rebecca Love, RN, MSN, ANP, is the Director of Nursing Innovation and Entrepreneurship at Northeastern School of Nursing and is an experienced nurse entrepreneur, founding HireNurses.com in 2013. Rebecca is passionate about empowering nurses to help nurses innovate, create, and collaborate to start businesses to transform healthcare. Northeastern School of Nursing's Innovation Entrepreneurship Initiative is to inspire nurses to be transformative leaders in healthcare. Through innovation events, programs, and new educational pathways, Northeastern School of Nursing is transforming traditional nursing education to incorporate innovation, and I apologize for this typo, entrepreneurship and business foundations to touch positive nurses and leaders in healthcare. Sorry.
Who wrote this?
I'm so sorry. I did put this earlier. Rebecca's community involvement includes serving on the board of Next Gen Ventures, the regional director for Show Me Your Scope Foundation, ACLU Dinner and Host Committee, Charlestown Mother Association, Harvard Kent Advisory Board, and the St. John's School. Rebecca holds an MS in Nursing from Northeastern and a BA in International Relations Spanish from BU. Thank you.
Andrew, thanks for having me.
Good job.
Good. Well, before we get started, I'd love to understand actually a little bit about where you're from. If you guys mind going around the table, and then on the mic, we'll just find out, your name and what hospital you represent, and basically your role at the hospital. Do you mind starting? I know it's always hard to go first.
I'm Linda Konchak. I'm an RN from Northeastern University, graduate in the emergency room here.
Great. Thanks for coming.
Andy Phillips. I teach nursing informatics at Mass General Institute of Health and Prevention.
Great.
Janet O'Leary, I'm a staff nurse here at Newton Wellesley on the pediatrics floor.
I'm Donna Mullen, staff nurse on pediatrics.
Brilliant.
Mona LaValliere, nurse manager of nursing informatics of the Bedford VA.
Susanna Kinsella. I'm a staff nurse on the Med-Surg 3 West here at New Wellesley.
Suzanne Salvucci, I'm the nurse educator on 3 West here at New Wellesley.
Nancy Dicker. I'm also an RN on 3 West here at New Wellesley.
My name is Cormier, also a nurse on 3 West.
What's 3 West?
Medical surgical.
That's great.
Michelle Redmond, I'm the informatics nurse at Care Dimensions.
Nancy Giacomo, I work at BMC, and I'm a nurse clinical analyst covering peri-op and procedural.
Teresa Jassett. I work in the industry. We do electronic quality reporting.
And our new
John Humphreys.
Oh, yeah, when am I?
membership improvement, Teresa?
Membership recruitment. I'm recovered past president, so I'm being recycled. Happily. What you mean? Happily, willingly.
John Humphreys. Work for Phillips Medical, and I'm finishing up a PDMP program.
He's a Brigham Women's Faulkner Hospital and Day Surgery.
Correct.
Oh, Pat Love, I'm her mother.
He's a retired nurse. But anyway,
Nursing Informatics at North Shore Medical Center.
I'm Paula. I am Nursing Informatics at Brigham Women's Faulkner Hospital. I'm also an adjunct faculty member teaching nursing informatics to both bachelor and master's levels at Emmanuel College.
Hi, I'm Marcy Seif. I'm director of the DNP program at the MGH Institute. Also teach informatics and per diem nursing director at Brigham and Women's Nursing Quality.
Hi, I'm Deb Furling. I'm at DWH Nursing Informatics Project Manager, and I'm also the NENIC treasurer, and you probably get emails from me all the time because I happen to be the one that has the kitten on the keys to be able to send messages out.
We're just introducing ourselves real quick.
Oh, great. Right now, Tracy Haycock. I work on youth environment nurse, and I also work in digital care transformation.
Wonderful. All right, you guys. So thanks, and I knew we didn't get to everybody online, but I'm so glad you guys are here. I love speaking to nurses. In fact, I was the last week was a very busy week, and so I was over at the CNO conference for the NHS in England. At the beginning of the week, I was on a panel at the first ever all-nurse, all-female panel that was at South by Southwest this weekend, and I'm back here with you guys to talk a little bit about what we're doing here. So I think the best place to start is probably tell you guys a little bit about me and how things ended up that there became a Director of Innovation and Entrepreneurship. It's the first initiative in the country to actually focus on this. So I am a nurse practitioner. I actually I worked at, I'm a graduate of Northeastern as well, and I specialize in hospice and primary care. And a few years ago, I was also teaching at Bunker Hill full-time in their nursing program. And at the time that I was a hospice nurse practitioner, I was taking care of a patient, and that patient the family walked out and said, Rebecca, we're going to put this patient in a nursing home because we can't find adequate care at home to keep them at home. And this had been an experience that I experienced numerous times in hospice, that the patient would be transitioned from the home. And as you guys know, most people would like to die at home, but they couldn't. So I had left that patient's home, and I went to meet a group of my students who had graduated with me in March. It was March at this point in time. They had graduated with me in December. And they looked at me and they said, there were 7 of them in my office, and they said, Rebecca, we can't find jobs. And, that desperation of being graduated 3 months and not having found a nursing job was starting to put a lot of pressure. So I turned around to the computer and I said, there has to be a place that connects people with nurses and those who want to hire nurses very easily. And there was none. And I remember feeling very frustrated and feeling sort of depressed for my students because everyone they kept throwing their resumes into black holes as they had felt like. And I don't know if you guys remember that experience of being a grad. I remembered it myself, thinking, does anybody see these resumes? Well, anyway, felt very frustrated, went home that night, went to bed, and literally around 11 o'clock at night, I sat straight up in bed and I woke up my husband. And I'm like, I know what we have to do. And he's like, you're crazy. So I literally got out of bed and I called my favorite nurse, who happens to be sitting at this table, happens to be my mom. And it was around 11, 12 o'clock at night. And I said, Mom, I know what we have to do. We have to create a marketplace that creates a platform that empowers nurses so that they can be found. And she said, that's great. Could you call me back in the morning? Thinking that probably it's one of my harebrained ideas because I was always coming at her with ideas. We should really start a business. We should really do something. And so the idea didn't leave. And so we went and we pitched it to my husband, who said, absolutely not. We have 3 babies at home. You're not spending this money. We pitched it to my dad, who's married to my mom still. And we got up and walked out of the meeting after his terms that he put forward. And on the way home, she said, what? I will give you my nursing retirement to build this platform. So she was an oncology nurse at Northeastern Hospital in Chicago. She gave me her nursing retirement, and over the course of the next year, I spent from 9 to midnight on a phone after working full-time, taking care of 3 young kids under the age of 4 to a company in India to build our first platform called HireNurses.com. We officially launched September 2014, and tomorrow we accept an offer to be acquired. So we've made it full circle. I can tell you it's nearly the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. So it's an incredibly challenging situation to build a company and to start it. And to tell you the truth, when I started my company, I sent an email out to every single nurse that I knew, all my professors at Northeastern, everyone, and I said, hey, I have this idea. I'm really excited to get started. What do you think? And it was radio silence. Not one nurse emailed me back. And as I started to understand, the reason being is that we never had any experience of understanding business when we were in nursing school. The idea of starting a company was a foreign concept to many of us along those lines. So that's how my journey started to lead to Northeastern. So let's see if I can move this thing forward for you guys. Yeah, I know, Rick, we're not going to move it along those lines. So let's start here. What does innovation to entrepreneurship mean to you guys? Well, let's start with innovation. What is innovation? Something new, absolutely. Creativity, yeah.
Solves the problem.
It solves the problem, absolutely. Anybody else? What's the difference between innovation and entrepreneurship?
Entrepreneurship is making it happen.
Take the idea and make it happen.
Make it happen, go beyond the bedside. So back in 2013, I attended a hackathon. How many of you guys know what a hackathon is? Yeah, how many of you have attended hackathons? Okay, just a couple of us. A friend of mine, when I was struggling to get my company off the ground, said, Rebecca, you've got to go to Tufts New England Medical Center. They have a medical school hackathon. And I remember thinking, okay, I got to do this. It was a terrible winter. We have a storm like coming tomorrow that kicked off that hackathon. And I remember saying to my husband, I got to go to this event. And I showed up, and the entire room was full of physicians, medical students, business people, and I was the only nurse in the audience. And I thought, I shouldn't be here. This is not an event for me. I'm not supposed to be wanted here. And you know what, a friend of mine said, no, stay. And I ended up staying and joining a team. And over the course of that weekend, it was a mini MBA. It taught me to understand, what does a business mean? What is a marketplace? Why do you need to understand who your client is? Who's going to buy it? What's the problem? What is the solution? And how are you going to solve the problem? Are you sure you're going to be able to do this? And And in the course of the weekend, we went on to win second place, our team did. And it so fascinated me, it so invigorated me that I started to study the environment of medical hackathons around Greater Boston. And what I started to identify was that a very small percentage of nurses started to attend those hackathons, but the vast majority of teams that won these hackathons had nurses on their teams. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that is? Medical hackathons. Less than 4% of attendees are nurses, but over 90% of the teams that win had nurses on them. Why do you think?
Because we're used to solving problems every day, every moment.
Even beyond, yeah, absolutely, we do it every day. What else? What else do we do?
Well, we're on front line.
We're on the front line, absolutely. We have the practical knowledge to understand what the real problems are to take those solutions. So, there had to be a hackathon for nurses, right? I just thought to myself, so I call one university, and I get all the way up to the president, and the president says, I don't really understand the value of a nursing hackathon. And I was like, okay, all right. So randomly, I decided to pick up the phone and call Northeastern. It was an alumni of mine, but I thought, there's no way a university like Northeastern is going to pay attention. Well, at that time, I was very fortuitous that the new dean had come into the School of Nursing by the name of Dr. Nancy Handerhan, who had just transitioned from UPenn. She got on the phone, and I was telling her about how excited I was about this event. She said, Rebecca, next summer I'm running a summit on innovation and entrepreneurship. Why don't you run a hackathon? And I said, well, I've been to a hackathon. Sure, I'll run a hackathon. No problem. So over the course of the next year, we planned this first hackathon. And we weren't sure what was going to happen. We weren't sure if people were going to believe that nurses should be innovators or that nurses should be entrepreneurs. Because if you guys actually look towards the literature on anything as nurses, as innovators, and entrepreneurs, there's less than 10 articles written in the past 100 years on nurse innovation or entrepreneurship. There's none. And I know I can speak to this because I'm flying to Australia to speak with Sigma Theta Tau on this topic, and they asked me to reference 5 articles, and everybody on the panel to reference 5 articles, and we could only find 2 to actually submit on those ones. So we run this hackathon where the event approaches, and 2 weeks before the event, we're sold out. We have 250 nurses coming. Almost every hospital in the city of Boston is sending a group of nurses to attend. And Dean Hanneran looks at me and she said, well, what next? And I said, what do you mean, what next? And she said, I don't have the funding 100%, but I want you to come over and I want you to be the director of this program. She said, because we can't introduce nurses to all this idea of innovation, give them this idea that they want to build something, and then do exactly what happened to you, which is, hey, go out there and build it. And good luck with that. So I said, sure, I'll come on and I will run that. So we'll talk about the end. But in the course of 18 months, we've run 22 innovation events. We've reached over 1,000 nurses at our events. And on average, we're hitting about $30,000 nurses a month who are engaging with the content we do. To the point that we had a phone call, an inbound request from Johnson & Johnson, who their Championing of Nursing campaign for the last 15 years has run a campaign on stabilizing the nursing workforce. You guys remember those ads on television? Thank you for being a nurse. That was all aimed at shortening the life cycle of what's going on and to alleviate. So they called us and they said, you know what, we're really interested in the work that you're doing on nurse innovation, not so much that we don't only want to be a sponsor, we now want to be a partner. And for the next 15 years, we're going to focus on nurse innovation as our new messages in nursing. So in 18 months, I guess what didn't exist 18 months ago is causing some significant change in the future of nursing education. We're excited about it, but it all starts with you guys, in all honesty. So, who's this person? It's Florence. Oh, so good. I asked this a group of 200 freshmen the other day, and they're all like, I don't know, who's that person? I don't relate to that woman sitting there, right? So when I was in nursing school, the story of Florence Nightingale was not at all of interest to me. I don't know if you guys felt that way, and I felt like it was very unrelatable. I had to do the Nightingale Pledge, and I really was just like, there really hasn't been anything better in 200 years along these lines. But the truth is, after I got out of nursing school, and I happened to come across a book that my daughter picked up on Florence Nightingale. She's 9, and so she was 7, and I happened to read it with her, and I was like, oh, this woman is amazing. This is the real story of Florence Nightingale, I think, is much more inspiring to me than what I understand. So in the 1800s, there was a war going on. Does anybody remember the war? Crimean War, absolutely. And during that war, the British got involved. And at the time, Florence Nightingale was working as a woman who was assisting cleaning the floors in the warehouse. Now, she came from a very wealthy family, so at the time she was one of the few educated women that was working on the front lines of this. But as she was sitting in this warehouse, she actually wrote an article or letter to the British government and said, if you wanted to create a place worse than hell, you have done so in this in this warehouse. And what she saw was the amount of disease and death that were happening on the hospital floor or on this warehouse floor was not because the patients were dying because of the injuries they sustained on the battlefield, but why were they dying? Infection, absolutely. And at that time, there was absolutely no belief in germs, right? The idea that something that could not be seen was causing infection was something that was not believed. And so her entire premise was what? What was her belief?
Fresh air.
Fresh air was one, absolutely. Washing hands. Florence Nightingale believed, counter to the primary belief out there, that disease was being spread through non-washing of hands and non-washing of medical equipment that was used from patient to patient to patient. So what she did is she challenged the status quo. She challenged the way things had always been done to create an absolutely new process and therefore created the nursing profession. Nursing profession was based on the belief that we should challenge the status quo, make things better, constantly innovate, and drive ourselves forward. And I would like to argue today in nursing, we have become a profession that does two things very well, which are two things that we learn in nursing school, which are what? What do we learn to never do to a patient? Harm a patient, or even further. What do you never kill a patient? Right? We never want to do two things. Right? Do you guys remember that? I remember being petrified. I'd be looking at taking my exams, and I'd be like, why is pain not the answer? Why, and they'd be like, you picked an answer that killed the patient. I'm like, oh my God. You never want to do those two things. So what does that mean to you? If you never want to harm or kill a patient, what don't you do as a nurse? You don't take risks. What else don't you do? You don't challenge the status quo. You go by protocol. You go by procedure. You follow it to a T, and you make sure that you do your job within this box because you cannot challenge the status quo. Now, the reality of nursing is what? The reality of nursing is what? What do you guys know? What do we do as nurses?
Challenge it all.
We challenge it all the time. We MacGyver by the bedside. You give nurses a roll of tape, and my God, you guys see what we do with the roll of tape. It's amazing what we do by the bedside, right? We would MacGyver every single moment that we're by the bedside. Florence Nightingale stood against odds, not only odds against medicine, she stood against odds of basically feminism, the ability of not being able to vote, educate, or anything. And what she stated was, I attribute my success to this. I never gave or took any excuse. She just kept going forward. And the truth is, if we get back to the foundation of our nursing principles, our nursing education, to go back to what Florence said, nursing can regain what I believe we've lost in the last 200 years, which is the ability to constantly innovate by the bedside to make things better. And that's the goal of the initiative that we're working on. So let's give you guys some statistics right now. Nursing today, we have 19.3 million nurses in the entire world. I don't know if you guys knew that, but we actually have 4 million in the United States. We represent 1 million LPNs and nearly 3 million RNs. The average age of the nurse is 55. Actually, I just double-checked that reference. That was based 10 years ago. So actually, the average age of the nurse in this country actually is 58. So 50% of our nursing workforce is over the age of 58. 70% of our nursing workforce is over the age of 40. Scary statistic that just came out, 50% of our new graduates are leaving the bedside within 2 years of practice. 2 years of practice. We are expecting a million nursing shortage between the year 2020 and 2025. And the truth is that we're not seeing the best go into nursing. And I can say this to you from our freshman class 5 years ago was the size of 90. We are down to a freshman class of the size of 19. And the reason that is that our SAT score elimination of 1,600, those that are getting 1,600 on their SATs are not choosing nursing. Why do you think that is?
Hard work.
It is hard work. It is very hard work, absolutely. But what else do you guys think is going on?
More choices.
Yeah, more opportunities for women today than nursing and teaching and
financial, absolutely. And there's a lot more opportunities, absolutely. So my husband asked me this. He said, Rebecca, why are 50% of new grads leaving the bedside within 2 years of practice? And actually, before I tell you what I told him, I'd like to understand what you guys think. 50%. So we graduate 250,000 nurses a year in this country, and we are losing 125,000 within 2 years from the nursing profession. So why are they leaving? Burnout. Why are they getting burned out? The hours. What kind of hours? What do you mean?
12 hours at a time.
Nighttime. Holidays. Weekends. So, all right, so long shifts, getting burned out. What other things that can drive to burnout?
Not enough support.
Not enough support. How many of you guys left the bedside within 2 years? You went back for a master's, you pivoted away from the bedside to outpatient care, moved into nursing informatics. Anybody else here moved within 2 years? Only one. That's a very unusual statistic. I also tell you, most of the nursing groups I speak to, nowadays, more than 50% of the hands are going up that have left the bedside within 2 years of practice. So what other things? Anybody else have any other thoughts on why nurses are leaving the bedside?
Recognition. Ability to change things.
Exactly. Ability to change things. Anybody else? So my husband, I asked him, I said, so when you graduated business school, honey, and you were a financial analyst, were you required, he's now a CFO, were you required to do the exact same amount of workload that you and responsibility that you have as a CFO? He said, of course not. And I said, well, let's take a new nursing grad. They graduate, and they handle the same exact level of acuity of a patient that a nurse with 30 years of experience would. They're working a day-night, holiday, weekend rotation with little to no increase in salary over the course of 2 years because the nursing wages have been repressed. So they're looking at their friends who have graduated with them from school 2 years out, who are working 9 to 5 Monday through Friday. And although when they graduated nursing school, they may have been slightly making a little bit more money than they had when they graduated nursing school, they look at their friends 2 years later, and with their bonuses, salaries, and time off, they're making $20,000 to $30,000 more than them a year. And they think to themselves, And I think some of the belief is they sit there and they think, is it Groundhog's Day? Is the first day of my career going to look exactly like the last day of my career 30 years later? And we've done this to ourselves. We've done this to ourselves in nursing in a way that's because it's been what's expected of us, right? Do more with less. You're empathetic. You guys know that you're there to care for the patients. This is what we came for. This is why we're here. And the truth is that you don't need to focus on yourself, right? You don't need to have more than the bedside. You guys should be happy with caring for patients, right? Really, I don't know if you guys feel that way, but I remember when I was a med-surg nurse, I remember thinking to myself, am I going to die the death of 30 years as a med-surg nurse? It petrified me because when I applied to go to the ER, when I applied to go to the ICU, I was told this was wonderful, but Rebecca, we can't afford to lose you from the med-surg floor. So I was at this meeting with Deloitte, who brought in all the chief nursing executives that they represent of hospitals across the United States. And I was talking with one of the CNEs who oversees 40 hospitals in her system. And we talked about this issue of growth, of recognition, and she said, we implemented a policy at our hospital that we would do this. If you spent 2 years on the medical surgical floor, we would create a pathway for you to go to the ICU or the ER. She said, but we had to eliminate the program. Why do you think they had to eliminate the program? Am I with the applicant?
Not enough staff in the med-surg floor.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
Med-surg managers got upset because they were losing their nurses. They would train their nurses and move them forward. When they eliminated the program, the retention, do you guys know what the current retention rates are right now of hospitals? What's the percentage that we're losing nurses per year, per floor? 19%. The turnover of nurses right now in hospitals is 19% per year. We're spending $1.5 billion in our healthcare system focused on retention. Significant amount of money, right? And what she found is when they eliminated that program, their rates of retention and turnover went right up through the roof. Those nurses who they tried to hold in on med-surg left the hospital anyway. Their longest retained nurses in the hospital today are still the nurses that they put through those tracks because they still exist in those other wards. So I don't want you guys to get too depressed. This is the reality of nursing today. I want to let you know it's going to be okay. It's going to be positive. I promise. We start here. We move around. But the truth is, this isn't a solo only in this country. I was speaking at the Chief Nursing Officer Conference, as I said, over in England. The exact same problems going on there. So unfortunately, this is not just a problem to deal with the United States. This is a problem of nursing across the world. And a few weeks ago, I was speaking to a group of 200 freshmen, and I asked them, I said, so, what do you want to do with your life? What do you want to do with your life? And what do you want to do? And they're all like, I want to make a difference. I want to change the world. I want to make an impact in people's lives. I want to make the world a better place. And so I asked that group of freshmen, I said, so how many of you guys chose nursing? And none of them had raised their hands. And so I said, why not? Well, you guys all want to make the world a better place. You want to change the world. Why did you not choose nursing? So, of course, we got a couple of the answers. I hate blood. I can't be there because of blood. And then a couple other people said, well, the money. I really don't think the money is what I want to make as I go forward. And then they said, well, my mom was a nurse. I saw the life she was leading. And then the conversation went further. I didn't think that actually it's going to make the kind of change in a way that I want it to make. I don't think that it's a scalable solution in the world along those lines. And it came down to when we really had the hard conversation. These young people looked at nursing as an antiquated profession, a profession that was not going to change the world because they're by the bedside, and they didn't see the opportunity for growth. They didn't see the opportunity for advancement. They didn't see the opportunity for significant impact of their lives or of their patients' lives in front of them. But the truth is that healthcare is changing dramatically. It's a policy that is focusing on a greater focus on technology. How many of you, obviously, I'm speaking to the choir here, right? You guys are seeing this all over the place. The amount of technology that's going to come in by the bedside is going to dramatically change the way nursing is delivered. I met with a group before I went into South by Southwest that had just rolled out robots in 3 hospitals to start providing care at the bedside, everything from vital signs to grabbing supplies to doing these kind of things. Amazing. This is being done in Texas, right? The other things happen. Skill sets are going to need to be able to care for those by the bedside to technology seamlessly. You're going to have to understand the difference, how to work this computer system that's going to be highly complicated and also take care of these patients because everything is going wireless. The transmission systems, I was over at BD, out at their head innovation lab out in California a few months ago, and what they were doing is that basically their IV pumps are going wireless, so they program directly to the pharmacy, upload the drugs and everything along those systems, so the nurse doesn't even have to touch and program an IV pump anymore. Things are changing in ways that I don't think we're going to recognize what medicine looks like 20 years ago to today. We need to now attract the best and brightest into nursing and create new pathways in education and training, and train nurses not only to leave with a stethoscope, but with a briefcase as well. So the truth is my boss, Dr. Nancy Hanrahan, says this all the time. She said, the goal of nursing education, we leave with an excellent clinical toolkit, but we haven't been trained with the business skills that we need to be successful, to speak to different directions. So, and what we mean by that is nurses, when I was out at South by Southwest, we talked to why nurses are not in boardrooms, why they're not at the top-level decision makers in the hospitals. And I don't know if you guys realize this, but nursing, we're taught to speak in a very specific manner. We're taught to present our arguments in an empathetic tone, which is, I think, I believe, I feel, and then we premise our argument. Now, in the world of business, how does that rank? It doesn't really rank, right? Along those lines, right? So how, the truth is, right, we need to sit there and we need to present the finances. The impact on our financial bottom line will be X. The operational expense of this will be Y. The patient satisfaction scores will increase or decrease by X percentage. We have to speak to numbers. We have to speak to operational ones. And the truth is we have to learn the language of business, which we haven't done in this one. So if we can start to change that conversation, the whole demographic of the ability for us to speak in those ways are going to lead us to different directions. And now, how many of you feel, when you're also in a room, that you find nurses how do you find nurses present themselves when they're in meetings with non-nurses? Are they actively engaged?
They don't talk.
They don't talk. They don't talk. And when they do talk, how do they start outside of I think, I feel, I believe? How else do they present?
How about I'm just a nurse?
All the time. I'm only a nurse, but. I'm just a nurse, but. So when I was speaking last week in England, I said the entire premise of defining nursing has to change. The term nurse has to be equal to that of a medical doctor, to that of a CEO, and the term nurse has to be understood that the intellectual capacity, their knowledge and greatness in healthcare, and that their inspiration for being able to lead effective change has to be on par with every single other executive in that room. Because right now, what we've done to ourselves as a profession is we've said, I'm just a nurse. I catch myself doing it, which is different because although I affiliate myself as a nurse, I now consider myself very much on the business side of things as well. But there are moments in time when I especially engage with physicians and challenge a medical decision. So I say, no, I understand that I'm just a nurse, but my opinion here is this. And from this point forward, the best thing we can do is redefine that conversation and start identifying ourselves differently. Anybody have any thoughts or questions?
I think that same cycle happened with other professions too within healthcare. I mean, healthcare for a long time didn't think of itself as a business, or didn't look at things in a business capacity. They looked at it as taking care of patients and the money would come.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, it's not just, nursing is now looking at its piece of it, but there certainly was very similar arguments, very similar discussions. Gee, all of a sudden, Medicare is cutting our payments. We got to start thinking about we now have to think of ourselves as a business because we now have to figure out where all the money's going.
Exactly, yeah.
So it's the same. It's kind of the same thing that's happening is now happening with a different group.
Well, also, I think what I forgot to also mention is that nurses are not only the largest professional group in healthcare, they're the largest profession in the world. We actually have more nurses in the United States than we do healthcare workers, house cleaners, teachers, or anything. We make up the largest block of any profession in the world, and in the United States. And what's interesting is even though we make up that largest block, we don't vote together, we don't unionize together, we don't move together on issues that done it. And there was something very interesting that we discussed, which is nursing has done one thing incredibly well, which is we have fragmented ourselves very well, in the sense that if you become an RN, you no longer associate with LPNs, and if you become a BSN, you're no longer on the equal platform as an RN. If you're an MSN, are you more of a physician or are you more of a nurse? And if you become a PhD, do you even recognize the nurse by the bedside anymore? And I think what we found is that by segregating ourselves so well into these silos, we have been able to diminish our ability to move the profession of nursing forward. And the truth is one thing that I think is going to change that is the definition of innovation in itself. It does not matter if you have a PhD or an LPN by your name. It matters how much inspiration you have and passion you have to drive change. It will be the great equalizer that we see in nursing in a way that we have not seen in the last century, because it is going to be focused on the qualities of what we bring to the bedside and how we're going to force the change in healthcare. Because the truth is nurses are the end user of nearly every medical product on the market. So how many of you guys have been on the floor or been in a situation when they have given you a new piece of technology or a new piece of equipment that didn't go like they thought? What examples do you have? If you have any. Do you have any? Yeah.
We had a feeding pump that the hospital had years ago, and it was very simple. It was easy. You turned it on, worked great, whatever. Then nobody came to anybody and asked about this new feeding pump that was a lot more complicated, and they were like, what happened to the other one that worked fine? That kind of thing.
How many of us have been in situations where they roll something out and it's created more work as opposed to less work? All the time, absolutely, right? I remember when I was working on the floor and they rolled out work. We won't even go there. I don't necessarily consider digitization of a manual thing actual innovation. So, but that's sort of what we consider epic in some situations and a lot more work. But the truth is that I remember when Vocera was rolled out on our hospital floor, and you guys remember the early formation of Vocera, right? How many tens of millions of dollars were spent on that? So this thing was placed around our necks. We're in the patient's room. The thing is screaming at us as we're talking to the patients. By the end of the first day, where was the Vocera? Vocera was back up at the front desk, right? All the nurses refused to keep wearing it, and what happened next? Vocera sent out a huge team of implementation specialists, and over the next 6 months, they reprogrammed the machine based on our feedback. So the argument is why weren't nurses engaged earlier? Why are these companies not engaging with nurses earlier on a frontline set? And I can tell you that's something that we're changing at Northeastern to the point that we've been invited back to Pulse at Mass Challenge. How many of you guys are familiar with Pulse at Mass Challenge? Right? Do you know what it is?
Yeah, they pick different pitches that people bring with the technology and then have input on how they can improve, or they actually partner with different people depending on what the need is.
Exactly. That's one of anybody else understand it? So Pulse is the digital health arm. I'm sorry, did you have your arm out? And Pulse has the digital health arm of Mass Challenge, which is the startup accelerator for the state of Massachusetts. They pick about 500 companies, apply, and they bring the best into this world. And they've actually called us back and asked me to send a team of nurses to consult with the digital health companies before they go forward with their products because they understand the value of it. I brought 10 of my nursing students with me last year. 3 of them were hired as private consultants to start developing these products for these companies. So March 21st, anybody that wants to come, I'd love you guys to join me down at Mass Challenge because it's an exceptional opportunity. I'm actually the founder of the program director of Mass Challenge is a man by the name Doherty, and he was a struggling entrepreneur when I was, and he was the one that encouraged me to go to that hackathon and then went forward and got us our first newspaper article. So it's really been great. His company got acquired to see where he ended up in life as well as struggling entrepreneurs along those lines. But the one thing about innovation and entrepreneurship, very different environment from the perspective that people are very generous with their time, their connections, who they know, and sharing of information in a way that sometimes in nursing we are not. So that is some of the good things about it from there. So let's see. So that's where we are. All right. So what do you guys think? What inspires the innovator? What inspires somebody to become innovative or do that? Why do you guys think?
It's inspired for it to be better.
Absolutely. To make something better. Exactly. Anybody else? I think it's actually probably pretty perfect. Florence Nightingale actually said, again, she was a real visionary back then, were there none who were discontented with what they have, the world would never reach anything better. What do you think what does that mean?
Instead of complaining about something, do something about it.
Sister. And what do we do very well as nurses?
Complain.
We are so good at identifying the problem. We're so good at it. Oh my God. I can't tell you how good we're at it, right? But you guys know how we complain. And the truth is that is the exact moment that you have to actually make the world a better place. And this is why nursing is at the critical moment in time where from this point forward, we can change healthcare in a way that has never been changed before. Because if we sit there and identify the problems that are going on and we actually provide the solutions, what do you think the conversation and change of power dynamics is going to switch to? Absolutely, to nursing. So here's something that you guys should know. On average, nurses do 27 workarounds per shift. What is a workaround?
Different way than what you're supposed to do.
Different way we're supposed to do, exactly. In nursing, and how is it looked upon when we do a workaround by our administrators? Oh, no, we don't make you do that. And you're like, oh, thank God I saved myself 27 clicks on Epic. I know exactly what to do here, right? Like we've all been there, right? And we don't tell anybody because it's considered a negative, right? But the truth is, what is a workaround?
Maybe you fix it another way to do it.
A workaround is innovation. A workaround is making something better. A workaround is identifying the kink in the system and creating a new way of doing things. And the problem with nursing is that we have looked at a workaround as a negative, as opposed to sitting there and saying, hey, Susan, thank you so much for bringing this to my attention. Actually, I want to reward you for identifying this failure of system and for creating the system better. Because let's think about how much time would be saved if nurses fixed those workarounds. What would we be doing with our time along those lines? Did you guys know that on average a nurse is in 36 different places over the course of an hour in her shift? 36. So what does that mean to you? But I can tell you what it means to me is there's a significant amount of inefficiencies in the workplace of a nurse, right? So much chance for new changes to be taking place. But these workarounds are considered negative, so we want to make sure that this is viewed differently. So we're going to try something. We're actually going to do an innovation experiment with you guys. And so I want you to take about 3 to 5 minutes. And Mary asked two things, and I think this might go to more of the leadership of NENIC, to identify problems that you currently have. Identify a current problem. Now, from Mary's perspective, she wants to identify some of the problems NENIC's had with gaining recognition, growth, exposure, things along those lines. But I'd like you guys currently to identify the problem that you have and how you currently deal with it. So go ahead and let's take 5 minutes. You guys can talk with your colleague. I mean, it can be simple as, hey, I struggle to find parking at work, to I can't transport this patient, to the charting system's terrible, or I can't reach this patient, doctor. Go ahead and take a couple minutes and identify what the problems you are.
I think I can speak for all of the facilities that are using Epic, that change management is probably perhaps one of the biggest things that we struggle with. Every 2 weeks they're making changes to the system. The ability to actually incorporate that into people's practices in a timely manner and get it ingrained is almost impossible.
So the changes that are going by quickly. All right, you guys, take a couple other seconds to go with it because we're gonna identify how you currently deal with the problem, and then we're gonna take it a step further. Real quick. So I wanted to. I knew that you're one of the leaders, but Mary wanted to send over some information.
You guys said you have a whole day.
for my job, for Wi-Fi.
Okay, guys, give me an example. Guys, I know I'm so bad. So casual. Give me an example about a problem that you currently deal with.
Problem. Inability to customize any kind of assessment or documentation between. Too many things that are hard-coded.
Oh, customized assessment. And what system?
NetSmart.
Oh, NextSmart. And how do you currently deal with that challenge?
I try to do workarounds and break the system.
I can do workarounds and break the system. Okay, that's exactly it. And so you found a way to do it. And so you've done a workaround.
Yes.
And how much time is that taking you, would you say?
Too much time.
Too much time. Are you finding that you're spending more time charting than caring for patients at the moment? Oh, you guys are feeling that way right now.
Everybody. I think.
Right, so that's a separate problem. So too much time charting. All right, so in the ideal world, what could you do differently to solve this problem of a workaround in the system?
I should design software.
You could design software. What would it look like? Like, what one feature would you put in the software?
The ability to customize it and really base it on best practice and make it efficient. I think we spend too much time writing things that don't need to be, or documenting now in the electronic record that we don't need to document.
I think this is a major pain point. And the truth is, and you're hearing this all over the place on this documentation, right, that you're sitting there and you're dealing with things. So I think it was Brigham and Women's, right, that had an epic hackathon, with the Brigham and Women's that had an epic hackathon, right, because the system almost broke the hospital. Did you guys, was that right? Is it Brigham and Women's?
I know they had a hackathon, but I don't know if it was specific to Epic.
There was something that was specific to Epic. I remember along those lines. So you would be really surprised. So why do we have the current systems in place? Why are our current charting systems in place the way they are?
The government.
Absolutely, it's money. It's all about insurance payments, right? So we're talking about fall scores with people who are like, there's no risk of a fall. Why am I charting fall score when I can't talk about the infection that's brewing in their stomach in a way that we need to talk about, right? So I get it. So this is a tough one to fix, but eventually you're exactly right. The idea of innovation is dreaming the limit. So your idea would be, I'm going to build a new software system that allows customizable workarounds. Let's take that over. Somebody else said too much charting. How can we solve the issue of too much charting? What do you do right now? How do we currently deal with charting? What do we do? Where are you at? Where are you at when you chart?
At the bedside.
Are you at the bedside?
Yeah.
At the bedside, how?
Point of care, card.
You have point of care device?
Yeah.
And what other things, where else do you do your charting?
That's the nurse's station.
Nurse's station in front of a computer, that's exactly it. Okay, currently computer. How could you make that system faster for you? Because you're typing, right? You guys are telling me you're typing.
Voice
system. Go with that. What kind of voice system? Tell me what you guys are going right on the right track. I love it. So voice system, how? What would you use?
You could use Dragon.
You could use Dragon. So suddenly it's a Dragon. Where would Dragon be?
Headset.
It would be on a headset, right? So we have Dragon with a headset. Let's keep going. How else could we do this? Can we go? It's a good start. Where else could we go? How else could we do it? How many of you own Alexa in your home? You have an iPhone, right? You could do an iPhone. You could tab us into an iPhone. Absolutely, right? How else could we do it?
You said the Alexa with the Echo.
Alexa or the Echo.
Voice
Stand next to it and what happens? Hey, Alexa, I need you to chart X, Y, and Z into the patient's chart right now. I need to know that the situation's worsening. Please call the doctor. Send this message to them right now. Voice charting. Do you have the ability to happen? Let me tell you, I received a phone call from Deloitte, who's working with Amazon, to ask to help them build out using Alexa in that exact same fashion hospital system. They've launched it in Australia, and it's going to be coming to bedsides near you guys. Keep going.
I always get concerned about the security, the internet and the Wi-Fi and all that, so
That's exactly it. So here's the thing about innovation and entrepreneurship, too, that I think is a little different along those lines. They definitely worry about things like that, and this is where I think we also want to explore ideas differently, is that there's always going to be problems with everything that we face, and so HIPAA is exactly one, but a lot of these systems, interestingly enough, are very secure. We already look at the government systems that are highly secure in those fashions, but the truth is, innovators and entrepreneurs are nonstop optimists. They tell you that when somebody tells you, I remember when I launched my company, and I literally walked out of the meeting with my dad looked at us at the table and he said, this was such a great idea. Why did somebody else not create a center for nurses so that it could be found? And I remember thinking to myself, maybe he's right. Maybe because it hadn't been created yet, it wasn't a good idea. And so Henry Ford, who's Henry Ford? There we go, right? He said, if I had asked people what they wanted, they would have told me faster horses. What did he develop? Cars. Innovation is about seeing what yet does not exist. It is a figment of imagination. It's believing the unbelievable. It's believing that it can't be done. It's believing that it's never going to happen because it's not possible. The impossible becomes the possible. The separation between stagnation and change is the difference of what innovation does. So what we have to do in nursing is we have to look at everything differently. We have to believe that change is good, that everything can change for the better, and that we can make it better. We have to look at it and say, this is a problem, and let me tell you, I have the solution. I may not know how it's going to happen. I'm not sure how flying drones are going to happen around the floor, but I know it's going to happen, and this is how it's going to do. So right now, you guys, we got to dream the limits. The truth is, technology is advancing so quickly that anything is a limit. 5 years ago, nobody would have believed that the largest owner of rental cars in the entire world would not own a single vehicle. Who is that? Uber. And we also wouldn't have believed 5 years ago the largest the largest owner of rental homes and housing that doesn't own a single piece of real estate exists. And who's that? Airbnb. So if you don't believe that it can't be done, it's just because it hasn't yet been done. And the truth is, in nursing, we've forgotten that when we were where we started was believing the impossible was possible, that believing that what you could not see was yet a possibility of existing. So we got to bring back ourselves to those things. So the issues of HIPAA and things like that, we can overcome those. Those are not the problem. So if we can do voice recognition in the room to suddenly do charting, what could we actually do with our time? Absolutely. There'd be so much. So charting, you guys just took care of. You just created a system, which by Alexa could be by the bedside. You could voice dictate into it, and basically all of your charting needs could be done. I think absolutely that's a brilliant one. All right, what else is another problem that you guys have?
spread of infection through vital signs.
Spread of infection through vital signs. That's a good one. All right. So how are you seeing the spread of infection through vital signs?
By sharing vital signs arm wraps with...
So blood pressure share, cuff share.
Yes.
Did you actually find that? Did you actually believe that? That you've actually found that as a study?
I think it's a problem. Yeah, it's a problem.
Yeah, good. I hadn't heard this one, so this is good. All right. So how do we currently deal with that problem?
Well, CNAs, nurses are supposed to wipe down the equipment.
So we're wiping them down. How many of you guys see this? We wipe down blood pressure cuffs. All right. All right. So if we didn't want to keep spreading infection, what could we do with this situation? How do we...
I think maybe like a bow ladder could be created per patient to put it around their arm and then automatically send it to your Alexa computer system to enter the blood pressure.
So a digital blood pressure cuff per patient.
That's disposable.
Disposable, digital. I love it. Blood pressure. I love that. That's a great idea. I don't know. That's a real innovation. You might want to run with it. All right. What else do you guys think of? What else? How could you deal with that problem? Does anybody else have another idea? I think that was a really great idea. Okay. All right. Well, that was a great idea. So if you could create a disposable digital blood pressure cuff, it's absolutely something that absolutely could happen. What else? All right. Give me an example of another problem that you guys face right now.
Wi-Fi issues.
Wi-Fi issues. And how do you currently deal with Wi-Fi outages and shortages?
Well, the nurses get kicked out of their program. They have to restart the computer or restart the program.
So we need better Wi-Fi along those lines. Absolutely. Okay. So yes. How do we? What would be the easiest solution to that path?
Get OIT there and do some testing.
That's exactly right. But what's the problem? Why don't they come? Why don't they currently come?
They're outsourced.
Yeah. Well, because the nurses get tired of calling them because they come and they check and they never fix it, and they just go about and do their workarounds and restart and do the best they can.
Yes, because that's what we do, right? Nurses are constantly innovating. They're going to keep doing the systems along those lines. All right, we're going to do one actually for NENIC because you guys remember the list. So when I talked with Mary asked a question, which was, what were we just talking about? What was the problem that we were going to... Scalability and growth of NENIC. So tell me how you guys are... So Mary, when I was on the phone with her, said, NENIC's been around for 16 years, and we're having problems gaining our reputation, gaining traction, and gaining respect in areas. How many of you guys struggle with nursing informatics being taken seriously at your hospital? Yeah, don't worry, it's not being recorded. A lot of things. And why do you feel that you're struggling with that? What's the barriers to increasing reputation?
Really being able to speak to what your worth is. So what benefit do you give the company? And it's the competition between nursing informatics and IS.
Okay, so nursing and informatics versus IS? System needs to be. All right, keep going. What other reasons?
I don't think that nurses know how valuable those people are. I mean, I just started working with somebody on the informatics team. I didn't realize how brilliant they are at supporting me in my role and working with me to improve my practice. So I just think promotion of that group is I didn't even know what their role was.
You didn't know what nursing informatics was?
No. I think they're brilliant.
So no understanding or who they are and what they do. What else? Otherwise, are you guys not getting the respect that you've been around 60 years? It sounds to me like you guys are doing some great work. You're having a major trending. People are starting to do certificate programs and PhDs around the work that you're doing. So why else do you think that people don't take you seriously?
I think there's lack of visibility. And I think somebody was talking to me, I think it was a few weeks ago, that they had a nursing informatics person teamed up with a unit so that person was there, came and saw what was the problems on that issue, on that particular floor, and worked with them as a team member of their unit instead of being in their area. Informatics, I don't even know where where it is. You know what I mean? I don't see them very often. So I know Sandy Jo. But
So you guys identified that we don't know how to speak to the work of how we're valued. There's a competition between IS and nursing informatics. Really poor understanding of what you do, or the roles of what you would do, and then the lack of visibility within the hospital itself and within those groups. So how do you currently deal with that situation? How are you guys currently handling the issue of reputation, responsibility, and increased growth and scalability?
I can speak to what we do at our hospital. I'm at BMC.
Right.
We actually created a nursing informatics council. Okay. So we literally have one nurse representative from every single unit in the hospital that meets once a month all day. We actually have it this Thursday. We have an agenda, so they all come with homework. Be prepared to speak after talking to your staff about X.
Who's on that? Just nurses?
All nurses. We do have a couple IT analysts that are on there, but mostly they come there because we have to ask questions that, like, we think of things, and do we have the ability to do that?
And what has happened since you've launched that committee? When did it launch, and what have you seen happen?
I think we've been doing it for a little. Kathy, you're on the phone, so you might know better than me. I think it's a year and a half. Kathy McDonough on the phone is on it with me.
What do you think? What's happened since the last year we had? Have you seen that things have gotten better for nursing informatics in the hospital?
The nurses definitely are much more engaged in knowing that they have somebody that can actually come and give their opinion, and it gets listened to. And we actually make some executive decisions, if you want to call it that. Like, we have a dysphagia, documenting everything, evaluation that they want them to do on admission for all the patients.
So you guys
have actually presented, and we actually said, we can ask this, we won't ask this, that's too much work, it's appropriate or not appropriate.
So the nurses can present so the nursing informaticists from the floor can identify problems that they're dealing with on the informatics side and present them to this group to see if there's changes that can be made on the informatics side.
Yes.
Love it. Oh, love it. How many of you guys have councils like this at your hospital? Yeah. All right, that's brilliant. Okay, how else are you guys dealing with the problem of lack of recognition? Anything else?
I'm trying word of mouth.
Word of mouth.
That's what, my husband doesn't understand what I do still. It's been 5 years.
There is a problem we all have. All right, so poor understanding. So whose fault is that, do you think, that they have a poor understanding of what we do?
We haven't explained it.
Yeah, we haven't explained it.
One place. We need to come up with a 10-second pitch. We need to identify what we do and value in the course of what you can say in an elevator pitch in front of your CEO. Go, well, I'm sorry, if you don't have a nursing informaticist, do you want to know why Epic's done badly? Because you never brought me to the table. Nurses didn't understand it because you didn't bring the frontline user, the end user of your product. You didn't have us involved. Do you want to know why you spent $20 million over your budget? It's because you forgot to engage the largest workforce in your hospital. How could you have solved that problem? You should have had a team of nursing informaticists sitting at that table explaining to you the problems that you were going to predict before they rolled out, because we could have identified 80% of the challenges you had there. 80%. That's how you present a business argument. That's how you go to them. Go ahead.
I was going to say, from my own experience, having the data and being able to translate the data to those people that you want to present a united front to, whether it's the CEO level, the CNO level. I've been doing this for 5 years. Just like Andrea, and there have been times when the CNO has said to me, and exactly what do you do? So it's interesting to me that sometimes, they do know I have value or I still wouldn't have a job.
What do you say when they say, what do you do?
Sometimes I'm kind of speechless that they don't have an idea of, because I send her a report every week of what am I working on.
So how do you describe it? So say that you walked into a room full of physicians, and they're considering funding a new role. They're considering a CNO, Chief Nursing Informaticist, or a Chief Medical Informatics Officer. What are you going to say that you do?
I can say a lot of things. I can say I do workflow analysis. I offer solutions to the problems.
Okay. All right, workflow solutions.
I'm the liaison.
Keep going. What else do you guys say you do?
Staff education.
Staff education. Oh, you guys are killing yourself. Quality what?
Reimbursement-wise, if it wasn't for people explaining us how to complete and document effectively, the reimbursement will go down the toilet.
Mm-hmm. Where does it matter to the decision makers?
Money.
Yes. None of those things that we just talked about have anything to do with money.
It's knowing how to translate that.
So we're going to figure out a 10-minute pitch. We're going to figure out right now 10-second pitch of how you guys are going to. How many of you are nurse informaticists, or you want to say that you're a nurse informaticist? Everybody at this table should raise their hand, because from this point forward, you're a nurse informaticist, right? So the only reason that you're here is because you're doing it. And the truth is honestly, it is the wave of the future. If we're not going to have nursing informaticists, if hospitals aren't going to have nursing informaticists at their table, that hospital is going to fail to be successful in implementing any new policies that are going to engage with their largest form of working force. Because the truth is this is a digital age. It's a transformative age. Everything is coming down to technology. And if you're not engaging with nursing informaticists, you've just left out 80% of your workforce right there at the hospital, and therefore you're going to repeatedly fail on any implementation that you are going to do at this hospital, driving up costs, further inefficiency, and further disgruntled employees. So if you want to increase retention, you want to decrease staff turnover, and you want to increase greater workflow, you're going to involve nursing informaticists. So you guys got to speak that way. You guys got to identify that what you do, nursing informaticists deal with the technology, the digital age for the largest workforce in the hospital to increase outcomes, efficiencies, and save the hospital money. That's what you do. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm serious. You guys ready? You guys ready to say that to somebody? I save you money. I'm sorry. Did you not have me at that meeting? Because that's why you're losing money on this project. That's why. You didn't engage with us? I'm sorry. That was your mistake. The next time you want to not make that mistake, make sure that I'm present. The truth is, and I heard a great quote, so I sat on the panel at South by Southwest with the Chief Nursing Officer of Microsoft. How many of you knew that there was a Chief Nursing Officer of Microsoft? All right, so Molly. Molly says, women, here's the truth, and the nurses. If you're not at the table, it means that you're on the menu. Okay?
On the menu.
If you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And how often is nursing on the menu? All the time. You guys are the largest expense of any hospital, right? You're the largest expense. And why are you the largest expense? Why? What have we done to ourselves? Why are we an expense and not a revenue source?
Out of the hospital bid.
Because we are rolled into the room right. We can't bill for one thing. We can't charge for one thing. We're as valuable as a bed in the hospital system, right? We are the cost to the hospital. We can't bill for one procedure. We can't bill for one engagement. The physicians get credit for every single line of work that we do. So I went to Tufts New England Medical Center, and Tufts, as you guys know, has had some serious struggles lately, right? What has happened with them? What happened just recently? What just strike? They were on the verge of going on strike.
No, they went on.
No. Oh, they did. All right. They were about to take it again, right? So they pulled back from the lines in those. So we have done hackathons. I told you guys about hackathons. The first hackathon, we had a nurse come by the name of Maggie McLaughlin. She pitched an idea. The idea didn't get chosen by a team. She came back the second year. She pitched her idea. And she created her team went on to win first place. She has redesigned the Lure Lock. She's an IV nurse at the hospital. We found out through the course of the weekend of what a hackathon was that the patent on the Lure Lock hadn't been changed since 1916. And so what she experienced as an IV nurse is that pediatric patients were bleeding out because the Lure Lock was too big, too many mechanical injuries on patients because the Lure Lock was pressing into the skin. In the course of the weekend, she redesigned that Lure Lock from what it looks like to now going to a provisional patent. We have her in front of 2 medical device companies to move that and license that product going forward. She's becoming a rock star at Tufts New England Medical Center, and she got a front page story on her and IV safety in the Boston Globe's business section a couple months back. Driving substantial change at the hospital to the point that when the hospital administrators met with the nurses on the front line, the one place that they agreed on was putting money behind nursing innovation to drag them back from the line, because they said, you know what, our nurses know better than 99% of anybody else in this hospital where innovation needs to happen, and the hospital agreed along those lines. So that's one thing that was really excited about those things from there. But when I was there, they had this award system start recognizing other nurses who were innovating. So this group of nurses shows up, and one of the neuro ICUs started to have really high CAUTI scores. What is the CAUTI score? What is it?
Catheters.
Right, urinary tract infections, right, acquired through catheters. Absolutely. And why don't we like those? We don't get paid for it, right? So the hospital's going ding, 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 ding. Neuro ICU is in a lot of trouble because you guys keep getting CAUTI scores. So CAUTI scores are catheter-acquired infections. They go and they start studying it. And what happens is that they're finding that the neuro ICU surgeons are asking that a catheter stays in for 72 hours. So they go over and they meet with the physician and they knock on the door and they're like, oh, so-and-so, what do you think about CAUTI scores? And the physician said, what are you talking about? We don't pay attention to CAUTI scores. And the nurses said, well, the thing is that we're following your orders. And we're getting a lot of CAUTI scores on our hospital floor because we're following orders that you've dictated that are causing pings on me as a nursing staff for causing these infections. In the world of nursing, we're often getting held responsible for things that are happening because we're simply following orders. So they worked with the hospital, the physician. The physician now only leaves the catheter in for 6 hours post-neurosurgery, and guess what happened to their CAUTI scores? Where'd they go? They disappeared. Absolutely none. But that's the problem we're dealing with in nursing, right? Is we're getting pinged for things that we're following orders for because we've forgotten that we should be challenging the status quo. We should be challenging. Who got the credit for that? For a very short period of time. But then the nurses got the credit for it. But you guys see that's what happened. So then so we ran this leadership and entrepreneurship course. We brought all these nurses in, and so some of the nurses, because it was all about starting businesses, and several of my nurses were like, I can't stay in this class. I don't want to start a business. I'm very overwhelmed. Well, anyway, I was like, I'm sorry, you have to come up with an idea, and you can't leave the class. I'm not letting you. You got to stay the 4 days. We're going to be fine. And one of the nurses came away from it, and she said, Rebecca, what I realized in this, and hearing all these other nurses talk about ideas, is I should start an innovation committee at my hospital. Because things like this CAUTI score situation, what if you're having high CAUTI scores on 4 of your other hospital floors, but nobody talks about it because we only talk about situations that are once. So they've implemented a new innovation program where these nurses show up. It's created a stepping stone for nurses who are like, I'm really interested, because let's talk about innovation. Some people say to me, what's innovation sort of sound like? That's a typical term in a hospital. Sounds like what? Innovation. Innovation sort of sounds like, to me, some people ask me, a lot of nurses ask me on the pessimistic side, so what's the difference between quality improvement and innovation? What's the difference? What do you guys think the difference is? There isn't a substantial amount, I'll be honest, but the difference is people so here's the thing. Quality improvement is all about getting better outcomes, but it sounds very boring, doesn't it? No offense to you. I don't know if it sounds boring to you. It sounds very boring to me sitting in quality improvement meetings. How many love to go to quality improvement meetings? Nobody loves to go to quality improvement meetings. Right? Call it an innovation meeting, you guys. What's the best practices that you're using on your hospital floor to make things better? Because you guys are really innovative. That sounds a lot better, right? Absolutely. Drive those initiatives into the quality improvement. Show the value that your nurses are doing by saving the hospital money. That was the first big experience that person saved. They were showing almost $1 million in savings by doing what they just did. So quality improvement. So we just talked about what we're going to do here. When I was also sitting on this panel, I was sitting next to a very smart woman who was a nurse with an MBA. And one of the things that I wish somebody had told me long ago before I went back to become a nurse practitioner, anyway, is that maybe I should have stopped and got my MBA. Right? Because I honestly think if you guys are doing this, an RN with an MBA is going to be nearly unstoppable in the future because they're going to understand the business of healthcare. But what she says, which is very interesting, and this is what you guys say, is nobody has an understanding of what we do. And we've put together this Nurse Innovation or Informatics Council, but the only people that come are nurses. We need to go where we are novel. We need to go where our healthcare expertise is going to be valued by people that are non-nurses. We need to be found there. So when we started this initiative at Northeastern, you know who our number one buyer into our program was? Where our biggest sponsors came from? You think it was nursing? No. It was business people. Business people who said, absolutely, this makes sense that nurses should be at the forefront of innovating healthcare products to the end user of everything. Like, absolutely, exogen thermometers. How many of you guys use exogen thermometers along those lines, right? Do you guys know that the founder of that company, the chief nursing scientist, is a nurse that created the exogen thermometer? You ever heard that Dr. Mary Beth Pompey? Have you guys heard her story? Husband was in the hospital. He was running a fever. He wanted to go home. How many of you have cranky husbands in the hospital? They want to go home, right? Along those lines. So the nurse is saying, I'm so sorry. We can't let him go. And so she's like, darn. She goes to the refrigerator, and what does she pull out? Popsicles. She hands her husband a popsicle, says, suck on this for 3 minutes. Sucks on the popsicle, throws the thing. The nurse walks back in, smiles. She's like, I think this is broken. It's not working. Try it again. And, okay, it's reading. He no longer has the temperature. He can go home. So on her way home, she thought, well, now if that's that easy, that I can trick the thermometer, what can I do? And that was the development of how she figured out touch, temporal thermometer. 25 years later, Exogen now is dominating the marketplace in temporal thermometers. Started by a nurse. Nurses also created the code cart, the crash cart. I think you guys do that. Sterile mechanisms. Things along these lines, you guys, that you can do all over the place. So what you have to do is that you guys have to get out of our silos. I'm so tired of going to nursing conferences and who's standing up on stage. They're telling me about all the amazing things that they do, and I'm like, I know there is a nurse out there who has done something amazing, right? Like, I know that there are amazing nurses who are innovating constantly to do different things out there. So one thing that you guys have to do is you're going to have to get uncomfortable. You're going to have to start showing up at the informatics specialist meetings and say, I'm sorry, I know that I'm not supposed to be here, but I'm going to be here on Tuesday, and I'm going to be here on every Tuesday for the next 12 months. Joining in these ones. You're going to knock on the chief executive doors when they're talking about rolling out the next, Cerner or Epic or anything at your hospital, and you're going to say, I'm going to be here so that I participate in this. And then you guys are going to start going to conferences that are non-nursing, and you're going to start showing the values. You're going to start going to health IT conferences. You're going to start going to business healthcare conferences. And everybody in that room is going to look at you and go, my God, that woman or man is so smart. They know and you're going to go for the first time in your life, I really am really smart. I do know a lot about healthcare. Like, there's like, I know nothing more than any of what you guys know sitting in this room. Absolutely. In fact, I could probably say I know a fraction of what you know in terms of healthcare and nursing by the bedside and nursing informatics. The difference is that I'm going to go and challenge the status quo and see what happens as the fallout, as a response to it. And so what we consider ourselves is strategic disruptors, right? You show up where you think you can make some change, some impact, and then you provide the solution to the problem. So people ask, Rebecca, how did you get to where you were? And it was all because I showed up and I volunteered. I basically had no idea. I remember when I was walking down the hall at Bunker Hill Community College, because I was a tenured professor there, my colleague pulled me over and she said, Rebecca, Northeastern's never going to be interested in you. You don't have a PhD. I was like, I'm not doing it for PhD. I'm not doing it to go to Northeastern. I said, I'm just doing this because I really think we need to advance nurses forward. We need to start giving them these skill sets. And so when I spent an entire year volunteering and showing that, hey, we could really do this, it suddenly changed the conversation of where my career went. And I feel very fortuitous about this. I feel really, very lucky. But the truth is, you guys, I can't do this by myself. Like, we need other programs to start embracing what we're doing, start doing these hackathons, these Shark Tank events, everything that's going forward, and start replicating it, start changing the conversation so that other groups start to embrace these kind of activities and engage with nurses differently. So those are some of the things. So anyway, lack of visibility, guys, I think what we have to do for you guys is you guys got to go other places, show up at different conferences, identify nursing informatics as the experts in digital and health, and then move yourselves into conversations where you otherwise would not become. Now, first of all, how many of you guys feel capable of doing it? What's holding the other one? What else would hold you back? Why would you not feel comfortable doing that?
Time constraint.
Time constraint, absolutely. Right. And I'll be honest, I have 3 little kids and was working a full-time job and then tried to build a company. I get it. It's time constraints, is it? The truth is nobody's going to make your career path but you. So we're going to figure out what you can take away to perhaps do something that you're passionate about. So, okay, that's one. The time constraints is good. But what else? What other issue would be from putting yourself in those conversations or attending those kind of conferences?
They might say yes.
They might say yes. They might actually say yes. It's a good fear, right? They're going to say yes. How many of you guys are saying actually money is the issue? All right. So here's the one thing that I think NENIC could do that would be that is going to grow your membership dramatically. I think that you identify 2 scholarships a year to send nurses to other healthcare technology conferences that are major influences, such things as HIMSS, such things as other healthcare conferences. And you say, we're sponsoring 2 nurses. Once you become a member, you apply. You're going to grow your membership. You make that announcements across the country. I guarantee you will triple, if not quadruple, in the first 3 months of that announcement. Because nurses are going to say, these nurses, they're going to send me to where Elon Musk is speaking. They're going to send me to meet the founder of Philips Healthcare, because they're not showing up at the nursing meetings, you guys. They're not showing up there. They're showing up at the healthcare conferences where we don't show up. So my opinion to you is if you want us to start changing the conversation, we need to, you guys have, it looks to me, very healthy financial situation. 2 $2,000 scholarships is going to gain you probably 500 memberships in the course of 3 months. And also, you're suddenly going to become the most respected informatics group in the entire country. That makes sense. So if money is the issue, how many of you would like to apply for a scholarship to go? Yeah, all right, so we already have a couple at this table. So you might have to do one for current members as opposed to other members along those lines. Then you publish their stories, you have them write a blog about why they're there, you have them live stream while they're standing there in Facebook, and then you start spreading that information around, and suddenly you have a sustainable, scalable solution. When I started my company, my poor mom sent emails, thousands of emails, hoping to engage with nurses to create profiles on our platform. We thought that if you just put up a website, people would join. These thousands of emails that we had to send. We scaled to over 12,000 nurses across the country, and I can tell you guys it was with no money. No money, and because you know us as nursing retirements, it wasn't. She had not worked at Northwestern very long before she gave me that nursing retirement. But she went back to nursing school at 50, so still a very good thing. But I'm also our most popular blog ever written about going back to nursing school at 50. It's never too late. But the truth is, you guys, is this is the way you do it. You're going to have to think differently. You're going to have to look at the world differently, and you're going to have to work very hard at doing it. So some of you guys, what would be very beneficial for you as nursing informaticists is to start writing blogs. to start talking about nurse informatics do. You send them to them, they publish them, and you share them on social media. You start creating the conversation. You want to talk about Epic, then you talk to the nurses. You want to talk about Cerner, you talk to the nurses. You want to talk about new digital platforms that are going to gain a point-of-care models, then you talk about nurses. When I was speaking at South by Southwest in front of a group of 100 people that are all entrepreneurs in the biggest, most influential companies, I said, you want to revolutionize healthcare technology, then you have a nurse on your team. The truth is, the most transformative time in healthcare is going to come is if we can engage nurses, start getting involved earlier, more involved, and start showing up. And I'm happy to make some recommendations on conferences. I am not the expert from there. Anybody else have a problem that they want to solve along those lines? Okay. We're good. So, June 2016, we at Northeastern, you want to know how we got started. It was this 3-day event. 350 people attended, as I said, and the 3-day event focused on the pedagogy, which was a very foreign term to me. In nursing terms, what do you guys think it means?
Hierarchy.
Sorry, well, it's the study of design, I guess. I don't quite get it still to this day. It's a very academic word along those lines, but the pedagogy of innovation to entrepreneurship, that it included a 2-day hackathon where nurses formed teams, identified problems, created solutions, and went on to pitch to win prize. And over 250 people attended, 90 of them were nurses, and it was the beginning of a movement. A hackathon, you guys, just so that I can explain it to you, it's an event where people stand up and they identify a problem. So we had a nurse stand up and say, you know what, I'm a cardiopulmonary resuscitation nurse. Too many people are doing CPR wrong and they're dying because they don't want to do it. I want to solve this problem. Since she won our hackathon, she went in and founded the first virtual reality CPR training program where she put VR systems on nurses. They're basically walking down the street, a person collapses in front of them, they are doing CPR in the street on a mannequin that tells them, nope, you're in the wrong spot. You can see everything going on this. She's actually a professor at UPenn. We're really excited. We have very high success rates with the people who win our hackathons to go on. But she went on and actually started her company, and our 3rd place winner also has kept their business on. But that's where it started. This is where it started. So in the course of 56 hours, she went from that problem to creating a solution of what that problem would look like and pitched it to a team of judges who gave her cash and mentorship to start a business. You guys ever done something like that? I have to tell you, I was sitting with a group of nurses that were trying to leave after the summit. I was like, oh, no, you can't leave yet. And they're like, I don't think I belong here. I'm like, you absolutely belong here. At the end of that weekend, that team of nurses went on and won 2nd place. And of those 5 nurses that went on to win 2nd place, Maggie McLaughlin was one of them, went on to start her business. 2 of them pitched positions in their hospitals that they have now been elevated to managers on their floors. And I'm sorry, the 4th nurse, I'm sorry, there's only 4 of them. The 4th nurse is actually Christine O'Brien, who's the nurse informaticist at New England Medical Center. And she called me and she said, I'm going to hack myself, Rebecca. And she pitched her position as nurse informaticist at New England Medical Center, and she enrolled in the DNP program. And she said, if I had never gone to that hackathon, I would never have believed that I could have done anything more with my career. Hackathons make you capable of believing the impossible, because in 56 hours, you test the strength and your ability to believe and innovate in ways that you never knew or that you forgot since you were a kid of how creative you just can be. So if you guys haven't been to one, I strongly encourage you to do one. In fact, I have just received an email from MIT Grand Hack, which is the hack of all, Grand Hack Medicine. I'm just asking to start collaborating with us to get involved in their hackathon to invite nurses to come. So that's exciting from that perspective. So that's where it started. Where have we gone? So this is a little late. I should have been updated this morning because unfortunately that was just October. But between June and October 2017, we did 17 events. I was running full steam ahead. We did everything from the summit to a Nurse Business 101 Startup Academy, meet nurse entrepreneurs and innovators seminars. Went to Mass General Hospital. They asked us to do a roundtable at MGH, which we did, the first one that nurse innovation was ever focused at. After our hackathon, MGH received a phone call from a donor, and they said, we'd like to donate $500,000. We heard about this nurse innovation program, and they said, oh, that's great. We'll put this towards nursing research. And the donor said, no more nursing research, nursing innovation. And the person on the phone said, what's the difference? So what do you think is the difference between research and innovation? So research is studying the problem, studying the possible solutions of the problem, and then studying the possible outcomes of the possible solutions of the possible problem, right? Study. Innovation is what?
Doing it.
Do it. Get done, right? Like the truth is, what do we do as nurses? We don't study the possible problems. We just do it, right? We just get it done. That is what innovation is from there. So, again, we went to Pulse. I want you guys to join me. I want you to come with me on March 21st. It's from 2 to 4. We're going to be there. We did a lecture series on using social media for research. IBM Startup Health Weekend invited us to send a panel of nurses. The first time they came back to Boston in 5 years, asked us to send to that. We did an industry lunch with some of the biggest healthcare makers in Boston to talk about inviting nurses to the table. And then we did everything from nights of, we'll show you guys where we're going from here, along those lines. We do a lot. Upcoming events. On March 24th, you guys, we're doing a Charlotte Nursing Conference. I have a nurse driving in from Wisconsin to attend this event. When we did our first, we have a nurse practitioner who flew in for the Nurse Practitioner Entrepreneurship Conference that we hosted in June. From that point, she has flown in for every innovation event that we've had. And since that NP conference in June, we've had 7 NPs open up practices in 6 months. 7 along those lines. We really are trying to make a difference in people's lives. Nurse Hackathon. We're hacking the opioid epidemic May 18th through the 20th. We have partnered with Startup Health Weekend, the first time they've ever come to Northeastern. They're backed by Google and Techstars in partnership with IBM. We're doing Shark Tank in partnership with the AARP. Why would AARP is coming in to get involved with this, because what we're going to do is we're doing a call out for companies and ideas that deal with virtual reality and artificial reality to create technologies to help nurses and caregivers let people live longer independently in the home. If you have an idea on that, somebody who has a product, we want to hear from you, because the winning team is going to be invited to go pitch the hatchery in Washington, D.C. for AARP's accelerator. In addition to that, the American Nurses Association has reached out to us to help them launch their innovation initiative that they have just launched. They've just appointed a first person to lead innovation in that directive. They're also getting involved in that event. And then we're doing our Nurse Practitioner Entrepreneurship Conference, where that's no longer in July. It's going to be in June as well. And those are the events that we're doing along those lines. So, you guys, I think we're right on time. Any questions, last-minute questions that I can answer for you guys? I hope that, yeah, go ahead.
I was just sharing that I don't know how I actually ended up signing up for these, but I get all your emails.
Oh, you do? Okay, so we also, you guys, so this has been the biggest bane of my existence. I do a newsletter every 2 weeks on nurse innovation and entrepreneurship. That talks about it. Oh, this is the last slide. Actually, you should sign up for it. You can go to our website. It's /nurse-innovation. One thing that you guys need to do to cultivate innovation, there's 4 key components. One is leadership. If it wasn't for my dean, the first dean in the country, to recognize that we should be changing this, that you have to start with leadership. Let your nurses below you do it. Time. You can't do it when you're asking them to work 40 hours a week, day-night holiday week, and rotations. Perseverance, you guys. It's never going to be easy. And lastly, you got to believe in it. Optimism, more than anybody else. And then resources like us to help you get there. So, sign up for our newsletter, and we should be good to go. All right. So this is do I have my contact information? I have my contact information for you guys. Oh, I don't know if I do. Something. I can give it to you. I don't have any more cards. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. This was a wonderful presentation. I think everybody agreed. For you very much.
Yeah.
I think so. No. We're here all the time, whatever. Yeah, I'm just gonna just go. And I think we covered all the objectives that Mary and I spoke about. But we had just some objectives that are reflected in your evaluation. So if you put your name on the list and you had registered, I'll be sending you an email with the evaluation, and then at the completion of the evaluation, a certificate will pop up and you'll get 1.5 CEUs. And now that if you've signed up, you'll get future emails from us for other programs. And if you'd like to join and you haven't, you can go to NENIC.org and there's a place there or you can recruit someone else and get a free membership. So I'm nice to you and thank you very much for Sandy for hosting.
Where's Rebecca?
There you are.
Excellent. Great conference, a very invigorating conference.
It's
Lots of people writing in. Wonderful presentation.
Thanks, you guys. And we can send you the evaluation.
I don't need to do that. That's all right.
Okay.
All right. I have enough to keep track of.
We do give it electronic. We have more matters first.
If anybody wants to go,
Is there anybody that wants to ask a question that's on the phone line that's not in the room? We see all your comments. Okay, so yeah. Oh, you do? Oh, you go that way. Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know.